தண்டாயுதம் உன் திரிசூலம் விழ தண்டாயுதம் உன் திரிசூலம் விழ தாக்கி திரிசூலம் விழ தாக்கி உன்னை திண்டாட வெட்டி விழவிடுவேன். தண்டாயுதம் உன் திரிசூலம் விழத்தாக்கி உன்னை திண்டாட வெட்டி விழவிடுவேன். செந்தில் வேலனுக்கு தொண்டாகிய என்னை செந்தில் வேலனுக்கு தொண்டாகிய என்னை என்னை விரோத தொண்டாகிய வேலனுக்கு தொண்டாகிய என்னை விரோத ஞானச் சுடர் வடிவுவாள் ஞானச் சுடர் வடிவாள் கண்டாயடா அந்தகா ஞானச் சுடர் வடிவு வாழ் கண்டாயடா கண்டாயடா அந்தகா வந்து பார் சற்று என் கை கெட்டவே. ஞான சுடர் வாழ் கண்டாயடா அந்தகா என் கை கெட்டவே. வந்து பார் சற்று வந்து பார். This is a verse from the Khandar Alangaram written by Arunagirinadar. It's a very graphic and expressive verse. The poet directly addresses Lord Yama or the Lord of Death here in almost a mocking tone. I'll translate this as per my understanding. The poet says, the spear of Lord Muruga will attack you and knock your trident down. I will make you suffer by slashing you and making you fall. I am the servant of the Tiruchendur Muruga. So as you try to oppose me, do you see the spark of Jnanam as a sword in my hand, Yama? Come stand within my arm's reach if you dare. These are the words that Arunagirinadar says to Lord Yama, the Lord of Death. And I think it's important to recall that this is the same Arunagirinadar who wanted to end his life because he was so disgusted with the life of sin that he had led. And from that state of helplessness, he has risen to such a state of valiant defiance against the Lord of Death himself only due to Muruga Bhakti. Perhaps this is why Dikshitar uses the words Veeranuta Guru Guhaya in this Kriti, Sri Subramanyaya Namaste, which means the Lord Guru Guha revered by warriors or Veeras. This can also be taken in a literal sense because as per the Puranas, the Lord did have 9 army chiefs named Navaveeras, named Veerabahu, Veerakesari, Veeramahendra and so on under his command. They were like his brothers and helped him lead the Devas army in the war against Shurapadma. So Dikshitar could be making a literal reference to this. But more broadly, Veera doesn't only have to denote those warriors engaged in physical combat. As we saw from the poem that I sang for you in the beginning, by possessing such valor and wielding the sword of enlightenment, Arunagirinadar himself is a warrior. He is a Veera. This goes to show that any Sadbhakta who worships that Guru Guha is also Veera at heart. So let's go back and listen to Dikshitar's own words before we delve further into the meaning of this Kriti. Tadari na 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 ra na na Veeranuta Guru Guhaya Ajnana Twanta Savitre Vijayavalli Bhatre Shaktayuda Datre Dhirayanata Vidatre Devaraja Jamatre Bhuradi Bhuvana Bhotre Bhoga Moksha Pradatre Shri Subram it is common belief that Lord Subramanya has two wives, and Dikshitar mentions both of them here. For saving the Devas from the clutches of tormenting Shurapadma, Devendra gives his daughter Devasena, also known as Jayanti, in marriage to Lord Muruga. Dikshitar denotes this using the words Devaraja Jamatre, which means son-in-law of Devendra. After this, Lord Muruga goes in search of another bhakta of his named Valli or Vijayavalli and marries her because she has earned her position as Muruga's wife through her sadbhakti filled with prema. Dikshitar mentions this by saying Vijayavalli Bhartre, or husband of Vijayavalli. Now, like all his names have symbolic meaning, this Swarupa, where he is flanked by two wives, also carries a deeper message. In Sanatana Dharma, we believe that for any action to be properly executed, it essentially requires three things: Ichha Shakti, or the will to do it; Jnana Shakti, or the knowledge of how to do it; and Kriya Shakti, or the ability to act upon it and execute the action. Now, Devasena was wedded to Kartikeya for his action of saving the Devas, so she represents Kriya Shakti. After this, Muruga went out in search of Valli to marry her out of his own will, so she stands for Ichha Shakti. Finally, as I have been harping on since the beginning of this exploration, Lord Subramanya is nothing but the manifestation and embodiment of Jnana. So putting these together, the union of these three deities, Valli, Muruga and Devasena, is the orderly confluence of Ichha, Jnana and Kriya Shaktis for Satkarma or good karma to be done. Now let's come to the adjective Dhiraya. The root for this word is the syllable Dhi, which also appears in the Gayatri Mantra. So there is another link that Dikshitar gives us. There, Dhi denotes the sharp mind that is ready to be ignited by the light of divine enlightenment. Built on this foundation, the word Dhiraya hails Subramanya as a warrior with a sharp mind and a courageous heart, and simultaneously brings another link to the Gayatri Mantra. And I think this Dhiraya adjective is very apt to Subramanya because not just Dikshitar, even Tyagaraja Swami mentions this in a kriti about Lord Muruga titled Varashiki Vahana in Supradeepa Raga. After this, he is described as Nata Vidhatre, Muruga, or the one worshipped by Brahma. Again, in classic Dikshitar style, he condenses a much larger story into just two words and easily inserts it here. The original story goes that when Lord Muruga asks Lord Brahma the meaning of the Pranava mantra, Brahma replies casually without taking the child seriously. Furious with this, Lord Subramanya imprisons Lord Brahma and replaces him as the creator. After Lord Shiva intervenes and humbly accepts Subramanya as his own guru to hear the meaning of the Pranava mantra, Lord Brahma realizes his mistake and bows down to Subramanya. This seems to be the story that Dikshitar alludes to by saying Nata Vidhatre, or the one bowed to that Brahma bows to. Now let's come back to another such story that Dikshitar has deftly fitted into just one line at the beginning of the Charana. He says, Taraka Simha Mukha Shura Padma Sura Samhartre. Taraka Simhamukha Shura Padmasura Samhartre. The purpose of Lord Subramanya's birth is supposed to be to kill the demon brothers Taraka, Simhamukha and Shura Padma. He defeats them at the end, but after vanquishing the first two, instead of killing the third brother, he in fact unites Shura Padma with his own soul by turning him into his symbols, which are the rooster and the peacock. Now, if Shura Padma was such a sinful asura, such an atrocious demon, why does Lord Subramanya not just kill him? This is where the childlike mercy of Subramanya is seen. And to see why he didn't kill him and why he unites him with his Subramanya unites Shura Padma with himself, you have to go one step further and see what these demons and their defeat symbolizes. There is a school of thought that believes that the Atma within us is nothing but the pure, untainted Brahman or Supreme Spirit. But that has been masked by layers of covering on top of it. For a rough analogy to understand, think of the Paramatma as a big ball of clay and all the living souls as smaller pieces of clay. If they were just left that way, then the pieces of clay could easily merge with the bigger ball. But if the pieces were wrapped up in a plastic cover, they would not be able to merge with the ball until the wrappings have been removed. Similarly, this piece of clay called the Jivatma is wrapped up by 3 covers. And these 3 covers are represented by the 3 Asura brothers that Lord Subramania defeated. The first brother, Taraka, symbolizes the outermost cover, which is Maya or worldly illusion. If a person manages to shed this layer of attachment and temptation, we see the second layer represented by Simhamukha, which is fruit of past karma. All the punya and papa that we have accumulated over all these births have to be shed by experiencing them as karma phalam. This is what the second layer represents. Finally, the third cover represents the greatest enemy, which is Shurapadma, who is nothing but the embodiment of ego or ahankara. When Shurapadma had this ego, he took all sorts of forms to attack Muruga. He appeared as fire, as water, as a bird, mountain, and even a ghost. But when he was thwarted by Muruga each time, his ego crumbled, and finally, devoid of that ego, he took the form of a harmless, actionless tree. Knowing that the soul has been cleansed of all 3 covers, Maya, Karma and Ahankaram, the Lord accepts that pure Jivan as a part of him and makes it the rooster and the peacock that adorn him as his symbols even today. This is why when we worship Subramanya, we say Sevalum Mailum Potri, which means we worship the rooster and the peacock as well, because these forms are manifestation of the pure Jivan, devoid of those sheaths that made Shurapadma and Asura in the first place. This is why Kripananda Wariyar Swami used to say, if we want to find Shurapadma, we should all just take a look in the mirror. Because these demons represent us and the covers that trap us in the cycle of birth and death. When we surrender ourselves to the Lord, as Shurapadma did, he removes these covers on his own, liberates us from the cycle on his own, and finally, we become one with Lord himself. This ultimate message is finally revealed by Dikshitar in the last line of his Kriti. He says, Bhuradi bhuvana botre bhoga moksha pradatre. Here we find one final connection to the Gayatri Mantram. The names of the 3 Vikritis, or the 3 lokas, which are Bhu, Bhuva and Subha, are appearing in the Gayatri Mantram at the very beginning, and Dikshitar denotes all 3 by saying Bhuradi, and says Subramanya is the one who knows of and experiences the happenings of all these 3 lokas. But as Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage and all men and women merely players, Dikshitar says Subramanya is the one who stages this grand drama of life to give us the experience called Bhoga in the form of joy, sorrow, wealth, so on. Mahaperiyava goes even one step further with an example by saying, when a deity like Dhanalakshmi is worshipped, she is meant to bless you specifically with wealth, which is bhoga or an experience, an indulgence. And a deity like Dakshinamurti is meant to bless you specifically with moksha. But Lord Subramanya is unique because he is the ultimate refuge that can give you both of these, which is why he is bhoga moksha pradatre. And with this final message, we come to the conclusion of this grand masterpiece by Mahan Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar. Mahaperiyava goes as far as to say that this Kriti replaces the fewer notes used in the Vedas with the vibrant Saptaswaras of Sangeeta, and by fitting the highlights of the Gayatri Mantram here, Dikshitar makes this Kriti the equivalent almost of a musical Gayatri Mantram. I don't know if I have done any justice to this musical genius with whatever little that I have learnt, but as I said in the very beginning, I have explored this Kriti solely under the guidance of Kanchi Mahaperiyava's exposition of it. So, expressing my humblest namaskarams to that great soul, I hope and pray that his blessings have guided me through this journey and will continue to do so in my path ahead. And I'd like to conclude our exploration with by sharing another final tidbit that Mahaperiyava gives us. Throughout this Kriti, we keep seeing Lord Subramanya through many lenses. First as the secret of the Vedas, then as a handsome romancer of 2 wives, and then as Sarpaswarupa, as a sannyasi in Parani, as a brahmachari guru in Swami Malai, and so on. How can he be all of this? Such conflicting images. How can he don all these contrasting forms? Mahaperiyava answers this by saying, the true jnani can externally be anything and everything, because internally he knows that he is nothing but the pure Atma. And that Atma is what inhabits every body, starting from a king to a sannyasi. To understand better, the jnani is one who ceases to identify himself with one physical body because he knows that his true identity is that of the timeless Atma and not the mortal body which it temporarily inhabits. Knowing this, it can be in any form it wants, be it warrior, a guru, a grahastha, brahmachari, anything, because the Atma is common to all of these. This is the secret of Subramanya Swami's many forms. So with that, we conclude this exploration of this Kriti and this series of Kritis being ventured. So after a break, I hope to resume with a new exploration. Until then, Shri Subramanyaya Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.